doesn't get easier for the football, but now we have to talk about the other kind of football. Of course, the soccer teams, because they were in action, of course, during the week. And we'll start with the women. They are now overall 5-7-1, and their latest, they are on a 3-game losing streak in the America East. This hurts. They were shut out twice. They lost to NJIT 1-0 back on September 30th, and then they played that the following Sunday, lost 3-0, and then lost 4-1 to Maine today, up in Orono.
As you just pointed out, that is a goals conceded, goals scored skid of 8-1 over their last 3 games. You're averaging less than a third per game. That's not gonna get you any wins or good positioning when it comes time for playoffs.
Well, worse yet, Maine was 0-4 in the America East going into this game. It was their first win.
Exactly, and honestly, I think it's going to be their only win of the season, the conference season. And we talk playoffs because now we're at the halfway point in soccer. Okay, they just completed 5 games, both men's and women's. Only got 4 left before it's time for the postseason. So now we really got to look at playoffs. And the 3-game losing streak is not a good sign for where this team is headed. Okay, we talked about the tough non-conference slate they put on themselves and how it's supposed to prepare them for an America East season, one which they only lost once in regular play last season. And after a couple of good hard-fought wins against UAlbany in Vermont, it's been all downhill. The offense just isn't there, even despite Stony Brook out-shooting, their opposition.
Accuracy. Where the shots are coming from.
Yeah, they're taking a lot of shots at the top of the box or outside the box, and they're giving goaltenders a lot of time to get themselves ready, prepare themselves, and make saves. And they're not necessarily that challenging of shots either. Honestly, although the offense has been silent, I think the defense has been the worst of the two because they just look sluggish the last 3 games. It looks like they've been stuck on first gear, and they're playing opponents who are on second or, in case of Maine, third gear. There's just a lot of really, honestly, I just say bad mistakes, like something you expect out of high school from a defense that should be a lot better. I mean, just in this game alone against Maine, 3 goals Maine scored were assisted by Seawolves in the sense of there were clears that were attempted, and a Seawolves player either headed the ball or kicked the ball over and tried to get it to another Seawolf, and it ultimately ended up getting intercepted by a Maine player.
Coaches hate that.
Yeah, and it was in Stony Brook territory, so it's not like, the ball was going towards the goaltender as opposed to away from it, and Maine was able to turn that into a goal 3 times. And you can't really get mad at Emerson Burke because there were a lot of 2-on-1s where Maine scored, and there were a lot of 1-on-1 shots where, for the most part, there was just free reign for wherever the Black Bear player could put it.
Well, that's preparation, because obviously Maine saw something in their video over when they studied for the Seawolves this week, because
they could beat them by outpacing them.
Right,
they looked tired, they looked slow. Honestly, there was nothing going on, and honestly, what they did was there were a lot of fouls, so they stopped the game. Didn't really let the Seawolves prepare themselves in the midfield. They gave up 10 corners and earned none, but Stony Brook was unable to capitalize on any corner, which is another issue when you're on your opponent's side of the box and you can't even find a way to head the ball in or create space, get a good cross, and get some contact to where you can knock the ball into the back of the net off another player or to a teammate. This team, just offensively, have been dreadful outside of Alyssa Francis.
Well, let me put it this way. This was a type of game, judging from the way you're describing it, that you're hoping they hit bottom. Because
they better hope they hit bottom.
They were exposed. Because, look, the worst play you could watch if your team to do is turn over in your own zone or turn over in the neutral zone and have it result in a goal. Okay? So if that's happening, if your clears are not getting through, that I mean, I don't care what sport you're talking about, whether it's hockey, lacrosse, or soccer, all the same thing. If you're coughing the ball up in the middle of the field, it's going to wind up in the back of your own net. You're going to have problems. And that's what the Seawolves have right now. But it's not impossible to cure. And it doesn't necessarily depend on your talent level. It depends on your preparation, and it depends on how you sync up together on the field. And so they're on a 3-game losing streak. Right now they're on the outside looking in. They're in 5th place, tied with NJIT at 2-3 in the conference. Vermont's ahead of them at 3-2.
I think it's 6 in soccer, but at the same time...
Okay, it is 6, but so they're in. They're in from that point of view, but how long will they last?
You're not hosting like you were last season.
That's also true. But you also have Albany at 2-1-2 and New Hampshire at 2-2-1. They're not far behind. So that place you have there is far from secure. I mean, Vermont's a game ahead at 3-2. And Hartford's 2-2-1, so they get a little extra point there too.
Anything can happen, especially... I said it last week, the American East has been so unpredictable. Anything can and will happen, but the losing streak really doesn't bode well for this team. The last time they were under 500 in October in conference play was 2014, which was the last time they missed playoffs. So this team, there's a precedent there where when you don't get hot, especially during the middle point of the season, your chances for making the full season and how far you're going to go are extremely slim, and that's something this team really has to avoid on their quest for a three-peat. This team's, I think, just got to get faster. Number one, it's got to play tighter soccer. Number two, it's just got to be cleaner. You got to see more folks on the attack. I spoke about how you had that key playmaker in Alyssa Francis. Okay, great. We got that woman who's gonna find her way to the back of the net. That player, that athlete who you can always rely on. 42nd career goal, second most all time, with Lisa Palladino, 1989. Still 3 goals behind Erica Keller. This is great, absolutely. But we need to see someone else step up like we did last season if this team's going to go far.
Okay, so we got past the bad news with the women. Good news is that after dropping 2 in a row, 1-0 to Binghamton back on September 25th, last Saturday 3-1 to Hartford, the men travel to UMBC and get a really nice win out of the deal. 3-1 your score. Stony Brook now 2-2-0 in the America East, 6-4 overall, and that places them in the 5 spot 2 as well, but only half a game behind Binghamton, Vermont, and Albany. New Hampshire, of course, undefeated 4-0.
I was going to say all of them are essentially tied. So you're really looking at a 4-way tie, at least as of yesterday, a 4-way tie, in the America East. But it's, as we said, at that point is so close there where really any one of those teams can break off and try to match New Hampshire, who are the top dogs of the conference. But that was a must-win game for the Seawolves, not just because of the timing, but historically against the Retrievers. They were 2-2 in their last 4 games at the Retriever Soccer Park. They haven't defeated the Retrievers in their last 5 games. That includes draws and losses. And after the first half, it really didn't look like they were going to win either when UMBC found an early goal to open the second half. But I thought the attack really woke up after that, and they really settled in to that comfort zone, finding those playmakers like Corey Cupid, Aki Silvaston as well, giving the Seawolves the lead in the 71st, and scoring 10 minutes later for the homecoming matchup. So, that was big.
Got a pair, yeah.
Yeah, finding that identity on the attack and keeping up the pressure, putting the game out of reach.
So the men, looks like they have righted the ship. They go on the road and get a big win there. Because coming up for them, they go to NJIT, and as we said in the standings, NJIT's 1-3 in the conference, but like I said, if a Maine can come back and bite you on the women's side, that can happen as well, and the Seawolves have to be wary. They get a little bit of a break in the schedule because there's a non-conference matchup. Next Sunday, by the way, is Umass Lowell. That's at Laval Stadium. But you also have a midweek matchup, and as we talked about this last week, that the games are going to get closer together because the coaches like it that way because that approximates a playoff format. So your midweek game is Yale, and then you're back in America East action, round out the rest of the season with New Hampshire and Albany. And Albany, of course, at Laval.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why, too, it was so big for Seals to get that win. Because, again, you're going into a very heated contest against the Highlanders. We spoke about it a lot last time. Don't need to repeat ourselves too much, but there's already a lot of bad blood. You know what? Before both teams hit the field.
Somebody's got to do a feature. And the press is the medium to do it in. Okay. I believe Anthony Leon writes for the press. Our own Anthony Leon, of course, Mike Anderson writes for Statesman. Somebody's got to do a feature on how NJIT has become the villain of the America East, having joined so recently. But the incident with baseball, and
I saw that.
Yeah, I mean it's and apparently, I don't know if it's just Stony Brook. That's where the research has to go.
I was going to say for sure. I'd say it's with Stony Brook, and that's the more entertaining one. With some of the entertaining stuff that's happened on and off the field between both teams, just very heated. Baseball in particular, obviously, but really just across the programs. Both teams not
Matt Sank has to begin his season under suspension because of that.
Right. And this is the Stony Brook men's soccer club where, despite the rocky past couple weeks, they're still second overall in the conference in goals scored of 6 and save percentage off another tremendous outing by Edmund Kaiser's 800 save percentage, which is good for first in the conference. So this is a team, again, they have the tools to score, have the tools to win. There's going to be a lot of fouls. So it's going to be a matter of being the aggressor during the contest and controlling the game. And
you got to go to Newark.
Yeah.
Yeah, on top of everything.
Yeah. NJIT's campus is not far from the Prudential Center, if I recall correctly. I haven't been there. We will be. I'm sure we're going to get some games in at NJIT in the near future because, like I said, this rivalry is just building and building up. And like I said, I have to find out if other schools have been rubbed the wrong way by this team, this program, because I mean, look, it's great now. I mean, when we get into baseball in a few minutes. Right now, who's the villain in baseball? The Astros, obviously. Everybody hates them because of the cheating scandals. I mean, when a Yankee fan like me says he would root for Boston over them, we'll get into it. So, anyway, the men's soccer team right now in a pretty good position. Okay, they haven't locked anything down yet, obviously, but right now, of course, they are at, we said, 2-2. Opportunity to build on that, 6-4 overall. So let's take a look at the events that are coming up for everybody. You got to get the calendar out because we are naturally covering a lot of this action as well as we normally do. Women's tennis was at the Missouri Valley Individual Championships over the weekend, and as we said, men's soccer is the next event at NJIT. Women's soccer takes on Binghamton. Football, of course, takes on Delaware. Now, let's turn to hockey because, unfortunately, Jake has not checked in yet. I hope he got got the link. But I did the game with him, so I can tell you that, first of all, Jake does a great job on play-by-play. And second of all, First of all, the hockey team opened up its season with identical 8-1 wins over Syracuse on the road. So I think that may have made them a little bit overconfident facing Davenport. Davenport is a school in Grand Rapids, Michigan. They're D2 in their NCAA sports, but they're in the same conference as Stony Brook and in hockey and in the ACHA Division I. And they beat up on Stony Brook pretty good with a 4-2 win on Saturday, a game that we didn't broadcast because we were doing football. But then we get the short turnaround at noon, and the Seawolves dominated wire to wire. And really showed, well, first of all, everybody knows that the main source for American talent in the NHL is the Great Lakes region. Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and so forth. All these guys, save for a couple of Europeans, are from Michigan. and they look like it, and they are big. They've got defensemen that tower over everybody. They have one guy who's 6'5", and they definitely use their size. But the Seawolves have speed, and the Seawolves exploited that speed to the absolute max, and they came up with a 5-2 win, and looked really, really good, and looked very, very entertaining doing it. And that's one thing I really do have to praise that team for doing. This is a team, by the way. First of all, one misconception I think people have about Stony Brook hockey is that it is a quote-unquote club sport. It really isn't. It's more like, you're familiar with the NAIA, right? Well, the ACHA is kind of like a hockey version of it. And they're not NCAA, but they're not just a bunch of guys, putting it together like a USG club, even though they are USG supported. But the hockey team coming up with a very good win once, of course, the Stony Brook Seawolves now improved to 3-1 overall. And like I said, wanted to get the recap in, but it's not in yet. But I can say they did jump out to an early lead and dominated most of the way. Controlled the tempo of the game, used their superior speed, and also they were able to get a hit when they needed it. And not only that, come up with a big play when they needed it too. And that really proves that they're not relying on any one thing. It means that they can go up against a team like Davenport that is bigger than they are, even though a little bit slower, and give them a really rough time, which they were able to do. Now,
that was the difference between yesterday and today. Yesterday, Davenport really dominated on the forecheck. A lot of fouls too on both teams. A lot of penalties. A lot of roughing going on. A few hooking calls as well. And ultimately, that favored Davenport as they were able to, take a Seawolf out, or even when they were on the man down, the defense was big enough to where they were blocking a lot of shots even before it went to the goaltender. So they didn't have to worry too much about shots on goals or deflections. And again, with that size, the Panthers really dominated, I thought, the possession game yesterday. And you look towards today, and it was really all Stony Brook, as you said. And their first goal as well. Again, they really did a good job, I thought, crowding the net. They were able to get 3-4 guys up and from the net. So when it deflects off the goaltender from a defender, they had guys there able to put it into the goal, like Kyle Stempney, who had 2 goals in today's contest.
Yeah, Stempney is the guy whose name I really wanted to get in there because he was looking for the third. He was playing Matt Barzal all day long.
Yes.
Wherever the action was, he was in the middle of it.
Right.
And I think that was... It did get a little bit chippy towards the end, too, as well, as the Davenport Panthers were getting tired of getting dominated. But most important thing, good win, good split of a weekend series, and their schedule continues on. They will go to Adrian College, which is a power in the ACHA. This is a tough schedule for them because they follow up Adrian College with a weekend series against Rhode Island, 22nd and 23rd, which, of course, is homecoming weekend. That will be at the rinks. One is a late game at 9 p.m., and then a 5 p.m. game. The turnarounds are rather odd here. Then they go to NYU, which is a traditional rival. Liberty University, another traditional rival. The NYU weekend is a home and a home, and Liberty, they go down to Lynchburg, Virginia. But Syracuse comes back on November 13th and 14th. That should be a very interesting matchup. So, and of course, their schedule continues into February, mid-February, and we'll be following them. WUSB.FM/sports is the place to go for the latest updates on our broadcast schedule.